acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of First Nations and has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, acknowledge the history, spirituality, and culture of the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Dawa, and Potawatomi Nation, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen, Chippewas of Nashash, and known collectively as Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection to this area, as well as the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples whose characters and ancestors share these lands and waters. May we live with respect for each other on this land and live in peace, friendship with all its diverse peoples. Miigwech. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed sessions to review and discuss matters that in their opinion fell under Section 44 of the Community Safety and Policing Act and Section 25 item B of the Onson Police Services Board General Policy 3 Board Governance. I'd ask for a motion for approval of the agenda. Brian, thank you. Pardon me, Carol, thank you. All in favor? Carrie? Any declaration of conflict of interest rising out of the minutes or anything matters listed on the agenda? Hearing none. Moving on to presentations, deputations, and public question period. We have no deputations for this meeting. Moving on to confirmation of minutes of the public session held March 26, 2025. May I have a motion to accept those? Ian, thank you. Bev, thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
Any business arising out of the public session minutes from March? Hearing none. Moving on to correspondence received. We have a item from Inspector General Memo number 4. It's a release of the Inspectors of Policing Strategic Plan. Also, the response time for research and consultation that we're now pursuing IOP. Is there any comments that you wanted to make on that specifically, Chief?
Nothing specific, just that we're participating as one of the host agencies. On the research side and the analytics side of that, they wanted a cross section and they contacted me earlier in the year and asked if we would participate because we have an insight despite the size of want a cross section large, small, medium sized services. So staff who can assist them with that. So we'll make arrangements to meet with them. It's planned for next week, and then I'm not sure when they're kicking off. We have an introductory meeting next week, and then a 3-hour session where they're coming here to gather insight information.
Moving on to article number C is the article on the drug arrest policy through the Onson Police Services. I think that was carried out at the Harmony Senate a couple of weeks ago or weekends ago. Also, there's an article regarding San Francisco rethinks free handouts of drug paraphernalia. Also, there was an email in support of the new drug and arrest policy that was put forth by Chief Ambrose. And F was an email accessibility in our local taxi companies. Item F was from a local citizen. I spoke to this person last week. And he viewed the concerns, and while this is not singling out any one taxi company, they did want to bring to the public's attention some of the issues that were involved. And I think this individual has actually he did talk to the taxi manager after so that happened in March. And what they wanted to do is he'll be going forth and probably presenting something to council and or the county council as well on some ideas they have as it relates to providing services after hours with the real current city bus service that provides wheelchair accessibility. This happened long before they were open for business. And so there'll be something coming up there. Moving on, Crime Stoppers of Grey Bruce coordinated report from January to March. And I think that was all that was under correspondence. Craig, do you know if you have someone coming in here?
Yes, there's somebody here.
Okay, I'll keep moving on. I attended the OAPSB board meeting on April 10th, 2025. Highlights coming out of that meeting included membership is slightly below target, and that's primarily a result of some of the OPP detachment boards not yet having their first meeting after the restructuring. Our chair, Pat Weaver, has advised the board that this was last year's chair, and a new chair and executive will be elected at our AGM in June. Executive Director Lisa Darling reported on recruiting. Okay. Executive Director Lisa Darling reported on recruitment campaign with a focus on groups engaged in the creation of a plan, transfer payment agreement with the ministry, training, and what they do on that part. The current agreement came to a close at the end of March 2025, and OAPSB has requested a new transfer payment agreement that focuses on a robust training program for boards. The advocacy committee, it's needs to be restructured, and a new strategic plan and team will be formed after the AGM in June. Provincials, pardon me. Provincial zone restructuring. This is looking at the zone 5s and 6s and such across the province. They'll be updated and discussed at the AGM in June. There's also be a review and updated agenda we also reviewed the updated agenda for the AGM Spring Conference. And you probably would have seen this if you'd signed up for participating at the AGM. Is anybody going to the AGM in the June conference? No? No one from around the board? All right, the other thing that we finally got the first edition of the new newsletter was published. There was some glitches in the actual links to get attached to it, but it did eventually get that sorted out. And there was some good information on the spring conference attached to it, as well as some places from around the province. And that being said, on item number 10, governance, I don't have any specific here, but we do have a new critical point printing policy for approval under business. Hank, do you have anything to add under governance at this point in time for the open?
I don't believe so, sir. You talked about the points policy and research that owns police board as well. I would encourage board members maybe to read the strat plan, the IOB. There's 23 pages. It's a very easy read.
Not the pictures?
About the pictures, yeah. So it's posted now online as well on the website. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. Moving on to reports from Inspector Bishop.
Mr. Chair, start off with criminal investigations drug enforcement branch. With respect to our 3 homicides from summer 2023, first of the 3 is now starting to move its way through court. In fact, we have the 1 or 2 officers tied up for 5 weeks beginning next month for start of process. 1 accused in the first homicide, the one that is going to trial, has actually been additionally charged with perjury in relation to testimony that she made at her bail hearing. With respect to the Curry House, it continues to work its way through the system. There is a date for tomorrow, but I understand it's an administrative appearance, and the extradition hearing is somewhere in the middle of May. It's the date that's set for that, so we don't really have a lot of updates on that. There were a couple of robberies through the month that were looked at by CIB. One particular Westside convenience store, we had a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old arrested a couple of days after that. The younger suspect has been put through the YMCA Youth Recharge Diversion Program. Historic intimate partner violence case that is happening with the assistance of Bruce Great Child and Family Services, still under investigation. Indication of the core unit requested assistance for an adult male hugging and touching female youth at the local recreation centers and public skating events, identified and charged. With that. It's an interesting case with a couple of illegal gaming machines that identified as part of a complaint. Our core unit worked with the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario. And because the type of games have been identified at other points in the province, they've laid charges, and there's currently some appeal action going on with respect to those machines. So they're not taking action on the machines until such time as the court decision comes out on those. We had a number of items of training and meetings that are identified. As of the end of March, we still were at 0 drug-related deaths. However, in the first few days of April, there's been one, and I believe we have another suspected one. So we're at least at one with that. And then no outstanding missing persons. So that's the questions. That's CIB.
If the public asks why there have been no drug deaths, which is great news, what would the response be? Why is it different?
We're probably not the agency to answer that question, although anecdotally, I know chief of this mentioned that there's a new drug treatment that's been made available through SOS, which perhaps is having some success. So,
And so I met with Kevin from the Erie County EMS, and there's probably a number of reasons that it's helped. Obviously, the tainted drug supply has been as big an issue. But then the ones that we can control, sublically is a new medication, and there are a number of people using that as an alternative that will mitigate the effects of an overdose for somebody who's disorder, as well the drug check that they're offering through Grey County EMS probably assists in that as well. So I think it's probably a number of different. But
So it's fair to say then, what we're seeing is a multi-system result of approaches to drug use. Then it's not one, it's the other, it's working together, because people notice that, and then it's a natural question, why has it changed?
we arrested somebody who was providing probably a very tainted supply.
Okay,
So yes, it would probably be a multi-pronged approach.
Thank you.
Multi-factor.
thank you.
They're here now. Sorry to interrupt. Rich is here. Should we break for just 10 minutes? Sure. Peter goes and some treats. Dr. Bishop, continue on.
Chair leader on the auxiliary board report, 153 volunteer hours through March. We had the auxiliary assistant attend with one of our Citizens Police Academy investigation nights, March 15th. The horse training. We now have our auxiliary number. Reviewing the applications. We are looking at probably 5 new members. Looking at a process beginning very soon. Trying to fit it in with all the other processes that we have going on here at the same times. That's the auxiliary unit. On to core unit. We continue to have one member that we assigned core unit, which is put 22.5 hours patrol. Charges of patrol locations, but it was on the report. What he's been doing, as he works out of CIB, also carries a role as the of the CIB unit, because we have moved a member from CIB back out of patrol, and we're just now starting the process to move a member, so the core officer is filling in for a little bit of the CIB role at the same time. So that is the report. Bail compliance warrant apprehension. Same thing, that is Constable Curry. We still remain one member down on the bail compliance and warrant apprehension unit. Hoping as the year moves on, if we're able to increase our staffing numbers, we'll be able to add the extra person to that unit. So Constable Curry, 24 criminal charges, number of warrant arrests, and board simply lists a lot of his activities through the month. More than 100 investigations leading to the 24 criminal charges. Certainly one of busy officers within our service. And I then have a report for you just on the 2025 running of the Citizens Police Academy. So that's now our 3rd annual running of the academy that we completed. And I listed we ran January 15th to March 12th, just typically when we run it through the year, just as the time that seems to work out best for us as far as avoiding training and absences, and generally just whatever year there's a night or two to weather, but that's to be expected that time of year. So I've listed the topics for each of the nights. We have on average 20 to 22 people that attend. So we've gotten somewhere between 60 and 70 members of our community over the 3 years through the program. And it's also regularly attended by our UP students, as well as a number of our new members when they come into the service. Also participating, coming out, as it's a good opportunity for them to learn about how a lot of the branches of the service operate. We always do a evaluation survey at the end of it, and just like in past years, it is highly positive. This is a very popular program that is enjoyed not only by members of the community, but I really think our members themselves enjoy participating in this. They put a lot of work into the presentations that they do. I just clipped out a bunch of the comments that were made through the end of course survey. 9.9 out of 10 on overall course evaluation, and same thing, 9.9 out of 10 would recommend it to friend and colleague. Additionally, from that, I put in as a result of course attendance from our attendees, we received 2 applications. Auxiliary communications, and another attendee is currently wanting to something that's currently believe that he had done at the start of that and is currently working his way through the process to get his OSPSB certificate and application in order to be able to apply to the service. So from a recruiting standpoint, it's a very good program for us as well. So our plan is to keep running it. One thing that I did just put down just as a sort of a placeholder for consideration in next year's budget. So we've funded that program through grant funding under the core grant, which just ended as of March 31st. That's one that we have not seen a replacement for in terms of the grant that's come out. So on average, that program costs us about $1,000 a year, which is mainly the refreshments. We do a t-shirt at the end of it for the full program. So if we're not able to see any further grant funding, that would be something that I would hope that the board will support in our next budget to be looking at making that permanent session, just because of the popularity and the impact that I think that program has for us. Was on citizens police again. That's my report.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to reports from Inspector Flooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting off with frontline patrol and collision statistics. The month of March, we had 101 HDA charges, 64 cautions, 147 criminal code charges, 36 POA or bylaw charges, and 99 hours of foot patrol. There were 12 on-duty ride checks with 202 drivers checked, and one provincially funded ride program with 100 drivers checked. And there was 4 impaired driving charges laid during the month. During March, we had 59 collisions. Our collisions are up this year due to the seemingly never-ending that we had. 30 of those collisions were on the east side, 10 on the west side, and 19 in parking lots. 17 failed to remain collisions. And of those collisions, the Collision Reporting Center handled 38 of them, and our officers investigated 21 of them. Moving on to community services, as usual, our community services officer was very busy. Some of the city schools dealing with some of the issues that they're having at the schools. In starting the meetings with the for the Wheel and Ride event with the city, Kiwanis, and the Optimus Club and the River District, and also presentation the Citizens Police Academy. He had presentations to the retired teachers on online safety. It's at St. Dominique Savio for safety at school functions and traffic safety. He was at Conestoga College for recruitment. He was at the Community of Youth Officers or COYO conference. He also hosted our BTR training, which was the Violence Threat Risk Assessment, which is very well attended, and also a presentation to the Sparks on street safety. Moving on to lost hours and training. During the month of March, we had 15 members report sick or injured for a total of 434 hours. We had 2 members on WSIB for a total of 336 hours. And in addition to that, we had 2 part-time members on that were injured on the job that were on WSIB. We had for training, we had our recruit graduate from the basic constable training at OPC. And we also had members on the following courses: the search warrant course, criminal investigations, domestic violence, the radar instructor course, the firearms analyst course, advanced sex offense investigator, the coaching course, and we had 2 officers on the Intoxilizer 9000 course, and 5 officers attended the Applied Suicide Intervention Skills course, which was offered locally here by the CMA. That's all of my reports.
Thank you, Inspector Flitty. Any questions for the inspector?
Coming back from operations and also council questions in relation to the accidents. We're asked for information if the roads are clear, there's no improper driver activity. Why are we getting the accidents? And what do we tell the public about what day to avoid, what intersections to avoid? This is the most recent request that's come back in the last month about how do we interpret this information to communicating to the public, because there are some trends. And so wondering, how do we explain when there's no driver improper action and the stats indicate there's certain higher incidents and there's no rationality? I mean, how do you figure that?
Yeah, and you're referring to the report that's generated by the company that we use for
Correct.
collision reporting, and it's sometimes hard to interpret because they will say that all these drivers were driving properly, but that's one party involved in the collision, right? And then there's all the other parties. So usually there's two vehicles unless it's a single vehicle collision. So sometimes the data is hard to interpret.
Yes.
What I can tell you, because I looked at some of the data last night, and you ask about what day of the week, and there isn't a consistency with that. For the last data that we had, the last 2 years in the first quarter, which includes the winter, Thursday and Friday were bad days. Wednesday, the year before that, and back in 22, it was Tuesday. So what is consistent there is that there's a lot of collisions that happen between 9 and 5, which is during business hours. That's when the majority of them happen.
Yeah.
And during the week. So during the business days, people aren't adjusting to the weather. So we had a particularly bad winter, and people need to adjust for that. Is part of it clearing the roads? Certainly it is, but you have to adjust for that. If the roads are in poor condition, then you have to go slower, or even make the smart decision of staying off the roads on certain days.
Yeah. And the question did come up at the meeting. How do we communicate to the public what this means? What advice should we give? And because it's the interpretation, and as you say, it can be a bit confusing. So I know that the Laura Whitfield reports on this, on the report information that we get, and the questions were asked. So perhaps city staff can align so that it becomes more clear, so that we can communicate for the safety of individuals, even around which particular intersections are the higher risk. So that, if people have other routes they might wish to choose, then they can choose.
Yeah.
So it was around the community safety aspect of taking this interpretation into practical application on safety for our community. And that's where the question came up. And then how do we communicate? So that's my question.
And I think probably the best advice that you could give the community is be alert 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you've got one intersection that's bad,
Yeah.
and people go, oh, I'm going to avoid that. All you've done is you've created another intersection that's going to.
Yeah. But it was interesting. At least the data is being looked at, trying to be interpreted, and then trying to be applied. So that's where those questions in the last month have come forward.
Yeah, and Old Sound has its challenges because it's a city of hills.
Yeah.
Bridges.
And bridges. And usually most of the collisions are happening on the 10th Street between 4th Avenue East down to First Avenue West. Highest volume area. Lots of vehicles coming through that area. It's our main area to get through town. But people have to be patient and adjust the driving so that we're not getting collisions happen. And it's probably the most well-maintained area in the city because of that.
Hashtag smart now.
Yes.
Well, if you broke down the accident for a number of cars on the road, it might not be that high
Yeah.
because the volume of traffic is just higher.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Moving on to Director of Civilian Services.
Maybe again.
Okay.
So our, first thing I'll point out, just bulk record check searches, we've seen a little bit of a decline in the first couple of months, but those are come up substantially. They're very close to being on par with March of 2024. So we'd see the just shy of 8,000 record checks done, which is good. I think I pointed this out last month, but we had quite an anomaly in 2024 with respect to the number of warrants executed, and that was because we had just initiated our bail compliance warrant apprehension team, who had quite a large folder of work to work their way through as that started up. So it's quite a number of warrants in that very first month of operation, maybe kind to what is closer to a normal number for us. So our persons charged per month, again, very consistent with previous months. I'm not sure why we see that February to March spike, but it's been consistent through the number of years, over 3 years, where I'm sure that's because the warm weather starts to kick in, but interesting. On the operational statistics for the courts, you'll see our total custodies transported is much higher, and actually, if you look at the number of video appearances year over year, that's the explanation for that. We were still seeing a lot more video appearances, and it's moved back to an in-person setting. So 78 video appearances in March 24 and only 30 in March of 2025, which pushes our transport numbers up, as well as our special constable hours are up slightly as well. So I will give you a heads up that probably over the next couple of months, we will likely see a spike in special constable hours, and that is in relation to a number of our, as I mentioned before, like our homicide trials are all kicking in May, June, and as the year progresses, and that usually puts a little bit of extra demand on our court security numbers, those big trials when they come in. So other than that, the remainder report, I think, is what it's planned for this. So with respect, courts, especially.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to reports from corporate services.
Yeah, I can. So for the communications center, in March, there were 5,580 incoming 911 calls, representing an average rate of 180 incoming 911 calls per day. Although the average daily rate of incoming 911 calls was less this month compared to the previous month, the average daily rate of 911 calls dispatched by the center rose by 20%. So far in 2025, there are year-to-date increases in 911 call volume in all streams, including incoming 911 calls, non-answerable and answerable 911 calls, and transfer and dispatch 911 calls. In March, the center dispatched a total of 5,942 calls for an average dispatch rate of 192 calls per day. Compared to February, this is a 3.8% increase in the month's daily dispatch rate. While the dispatch rates for fire departments and Grey County Transport declined, the overall increase in dispatch volume is due solely to the demands from police agencies, including Owen Sound Police Service, which daily dispatch rate rose by 8% in March to 50 calls per day from 46 in February. Year to date, at the end of March, compared to the same time last year, the center is recording an almost 19% increase in dispatch volume, with increases from police of 17%, fire at 19%, and Grey County Transport at 47%. The overall average daily dispatch rate this year is now 185 events per day, compared to 154 per day, with that being an increase of 20%. The 6 police agencies dispatched by the center compose 86% of the workload for the center, with the Owen Sound Police Service representing 26% of that portion. Year to date, there have been 4,262 events dispatched for the Owen Sound Police, with an average daily dispatch rate now at 47 calls per day, compared to 43 calls per day at the same time last year, representing an increase of 11%. And there's various graphs for your information enclosed.
Good, thank you, Jeff. Any questions regarding the report? Anything from Inspector Director Hill to be reported?
Yeah, just that it's attached as well, and there's been significant work being done in the implementation of Engine 911. It's been delayed because of vendors and such, but we have a certain effort moving to get that live, and we've got our service providers to make sure that that remains on track. So we're aiming for a certification in June and go live in July now.
And then should item number 15, report from manager of HR, was that done in the previous meeting? Yep. And moving on to financial update from the chief.
Well, I received some numbers from the city, and Jeff Hawk and I went over them last week, and I didn't include them because it would have been more confusing than anything to provide you an update. And the reason being is that although the contracts for the uniform member and civilian members have been ratified, there has been no retroactive pay taken out. There was a carryover to cover that from last year, and as a result, without that, it's really not that accurate. It's not that accurate a snapshot of the time. So we're working on getting those done through the city and get you a more accurate snapshot.
Okay. But overall, it's probably
overall there. I don't have any concerns at this point.
Moving on to number of operations reports from the chief.
Yeah, so just my activities from the last month. There's been quite a bit of work on the innovation center, both in transition and contracts. Some work, the OECP zone meeting, and spent a day there. Attended the swearing in ceremony for the new deputy chief over in Saugeen Shores, Jeremy Mighton. I attended the first day of the violence threat risk assessment training that we hosted. That was a really interesting day, and I want to highlight the work that Jason Craney did. That's a grant funded training that's being provided for ourselves, other police services in Grey and Bruce County, and the OPP in Grey and Bruce County, as well as all the school boards. And it's to coordinate high risk incidents, and I'll be on the same page when you're talking about a violent threat risk assessment in the school, and they're becoming more and more frequent, and it's good to be proactive and make sure that everybody understands their role and each other's role when it comes to that. So we brought in a trainer from somewhere in Alberta, who's a specialist in that, and provided that level 1 training for about 90 people, and we will be hosting level 2 training in the fall. And there's already a waiting list with the school boards to try and get their staff on that. So that was probably one of the biggest, most significant days.
Good. Do you have any questions for the chief on this report? Moving on to item 18, critical point reporting and policy approval. On March 20th, the IOP released general memo and advisory bullet number 3 regarding Municipal Police Service Board policy on critical point reporting. This bulletin required municipal police services develop a new board policy for critical point reporting. So I contacted Dave Preston, our policy writer, and he's drafted a policy for the board. This policy has been reviewed by the chief and he supports the policy. Are there any questions regarding the proposed policy that would have shown up in your board package? Yeah. If there's no comments or questions, could I have a motion to approve the new policy? Bev, thank you. Seconder, Brian, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to introduction of hyper AI for non-emergency call handling.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have a visual presentation and demonstration, but that's not gonna happen. We haven't moved along far enough into our discussions with the company, but just want to notify everybody that we're looking at using a call tree, an artificial intelligence call tree to take and handle non-emergency calls for service and free up time with our dispatchers to handle those emergency calls for service, and you can see increase experiencing in the comm center. So if we can divert a number of those calls and have them directed in the right queues and looked at, it's a very interactive tool, and you can speak to the AI attendant and they will direct you in the right direction. And if there is an issue, they automatically transfer you into the emergency queue so your call is answered priority sequence. So we will do a demonstration in the coming months so that you can see how that works and how it's done. And we're fortunate to be able to move in that direction.
Okay, great. Moving on to item number C, the city nuisance bylaw. I've added this to your agenda for information and a better understanding of what the city bylaw is actually enacted to do. And it was interesting through the bylaw. It was on the revision history. It was last done in March of 2024. That's the original one. Seems there wasn't a nuisance bylaw prior to that. So I think we've got some new information within, it's about a year old, that we could be using to deal with some of the issues that we have, or some of the issues that the public and businesses are dealing with downtown. At our last meeting, we briefly discussed it's no longer becoming acceptable for shoppers to feel unsafe downtown. I think we might have said at one time if they feel uncomfortable. I think on that and now be feeling unsafe. I think unsafe could also extend to the business owners, because if they feel uncomfortable or they feel unsafe, why are they locking their doors and monitoring traffic flow into their business? It's been a long time since I've seen people lock their doors, other than the LCBO and the rush at Christmas time to limit the number of people in the store. But when the store is empty and they're still locking the doors to monitor traffic, I think there's something wrong with that picture. And I've also heard anecdotally that there's nothing that can be done about this. I think is based on this nuisance bylaw, I think there are some things can be done. And I think it's actually using the tools in the toolbox that they actually have. And I think the chief, based on his presentation at the Harmony Center, is using his toolbox to move things along, and especially some of the issues that we have literally on the sidewalk downtown. I won't go back into all of the things that we talked about. The business plan, I think that was talked about at council. I won't talk about the articles Harmony Center, because I think that was also included in the board package. And what the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police are now looking at enforcing things, and it's no longer supports the decriminalization of drugs. City of Vancouver has just recently passed a bylaw that it's no longer acceptable to consume drugs in parks, in public, the Gastown area, all of those areas of Vancouver. And they're still waiting for, I think that was just done in the spring, maybe in the fall. And they're still looking at statistics to show how effective that has been. Also, I think the email received in correspondence on drug use downtown speaks volumes, as there's most likely others who feel the same way, but just haven't gotten around to writing an email. I can't anybody would sit by and say, well, it's acceptable for my 10-year-old daughter to watch somebody shooting up drugs. And on this bench next to him, a guy smoking a cigarette, and bylaw comes along and charges him. But the drug dealer doesn't have anything. So I think Craig's actions and moving forward are the right ones to do. I'm wondering, given that we now know what's in the nuisance bylaw, if there could be a coordinated effort between city bylaw and police service to move forward and deal with the situation we have downtown, especially as the summer months approaches and tourists come in, and try and bring back the shoppers to downtown. I know the only way that we can really do it, and we have to depend on the public to do it, is the Greatest American Street Sale. You have an influx of people downtown. I haven't seen a lot of other people around downtown, are the ones that we're trying to deal with here. So they're using their own force. The other thing too that we found, we talked about briefly about locking the doors. I think there was just a recent case where there was a business, not on Main Street, but maybe a block back, that has already provided or in about to provide an impact statement, victim impact statement about how it's impacting their business. And I think you can speak to that issue, or
So part of the enforcement possession of older subsidized talks about a manifestation of the problem. And so we've gone out and we've attended, and Steve Beanie, our core officer, is also looking at. Dave's going to make a presentation to PIA at the upcoming meeting. He's asked an opportunity to speak to them about victim impacts and the impacts and what's going on and how it's caused issues for businesses downtown and for individuals, and how it's affected businesses, so that we can go to PPSC rather than just having them automatically withdraw charges to a serious manifestation issue that we have been found, and the impact it's having, to hopefully allow them more options to proceed with some of those charges. Right now, and this was news to us, that all possession charges go to a clearinghouse type person that sits in Toronto to make a decision, and there's no, at least where there's an agent location, there's no local decision on whether or not that stays. So we're continuing to follow up on our end what that means, but I think it's important that the community also supports what that means, and that we gather some of that information, and we've approached some individuals providing that to explain the circumstances. You've been out as well. We've met with people, with business owners, to explain the situation and what we need from the community, and as well to make this work.
any other thoughts or discussions on what we do? How we move things forward?
We had a meeting a couple of years ago that was organized by the Chamber and DIA, and we didn't get that many businesses out, but I think it's time to do it again. It's been 2 to 3 years. I don't know if you just said that this was the first nuisance bylaw?
Yes.
Okay, it number 34, it repeals 1998. So there'd been a nuisance bylaw before that was repealed by this.
Oh, because I was looking at last revised March 12th, 2024 and 2024 026 is the original.
This go down to 34 at the end, and it's
Okay.
it shows what's repealed. This spring, mostly because of the winter, I don't know, you guys might remember a certain mayor that had a little hissy fit in the council chamber for dog poop in the street a few years ago. after a winter. This year it wasn't dog poop that the mayor was getting all the calls, it was needles. And we've got an agency that is commenting on the pounds of clothes they're distributing each day or each week or each month, whichever. And we've got Works Department staff that's cleaning up those clothes and trying to catch up to the needles that are given out for free. You've got that San Francisco thing. Somewhere there's a balance, and I don't think we're in balance right now. You know, I receive phone calls from people that moved to town and they don't want to drive on 8th Street. And they've got friends that want to move here, but they won't move here after coming to visit, driving on 8th Street. I had a long telephone call with one lady. But I'm picking up from people and businesses and all over, people in residential neighborhoods, on a route between A and B, and A being downtown, and
I don't think you need to say the
Just
exact address.
going somewhere where there's a destination, and needles being left in their front lawn, and they've got kids, and so at what point are we giving out too many needles? At what point is that becoming irresponsible, trying to make sure that always comes back, you can't help an addicted person unless they're alive, but at what point, when we're trying to give out clean needles to keep them alive, are we risking the rest of the community? Where's the balance? It's that issue, and I know there are businesses that downtown that have suffered.
And are suffering,
Where's
yeah.
the balance? I raised this at AMO last year in Ottawa, and the experts were from Sudbury and from Waterloo region, talking about all the things that are the right things to do, that they need to do, that they're working on, and we're doing all those things in Grey County already and have been doing them for a number of years, so we're ahead of them. But when I approached them after and said, okay, how are you helping, especially Sudbury, how are you helping your downtown? The answer was, well, we're trying to communicate with them through the BIA what we can't do. It was really that, I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically the answer. They didn't have an answer of what they can do. I think Craig and other chiefs steps to start to lay charges and start to react more, protecting the everyday person versus the drug person, the addicted person, I think is a start. Certainly, we've got a leg up with the baby school treatment center that nobody else has got yet. They're building 19 more of them in the province, but we're ahead on that. That's got to help in the long run. Just read the San Francisco article. If you want to receive free paraphernalia, you've got to be having discussions about treatment, which seems to me a lot of that has to be discussed at the community safety and well-being table where everybody comes together to a certain extent.
Are there many businesses that go to that community safety well-being table?
And I don't think so. I think it's all the agencies.
And that's the issue. I don't think businesses are having a voice.
Yeah. Well, except Chamber of Commerce should be speaking. Well, I don't know if they go to that, do they? You know. So that's where I think it's been a couple of years, and another town hall type thing to discuss, and
There is one tonight.
Go ahead, Carol.
sorry, Craig.
There is a town hall on substance issues tonight.
Yeah.
Community safety, well-being, crime prevention. Drug pillars putting that on.
With Chamber and with DIA.
I'm not sure who all's been invited, but it's an open public forum. They've been moving them around various counties.
The last time we did do this, certain business owners and operators stood up and said things that were right in the spectrum and got jumped pretty quickly from those of the social agencies left.
And that's one of the issues.
Which is where the problem.
Yeah.
Because your words, I just listened to you, Todd. There has to be, or where is the balance? There has to be a balance. Why does there have to be a balance? Like, why are we giving out needles? Empathy takes over with these agencies and it's all about enabling. And as long as we enable them, then we're hurting people like you and I that are taking our grandchildren downtown. It's all about enabling. If I'm an alcoholic, nobody is feeding me booze. If there is no balance, stop giving them needles.
One of the issues is that we keep spending money and putting it into community groups and then different things like that. And years ago, there was somebody up with the definition of insanity. Insanity is being in a lab using the same set of variables for the same testing and looking for a different result. You're not going to get it. And that's what's happening. We're putting all of this money into it, expecting a different result. It's not going to happen.
Trouble with that is we don't know what the result is. We don't know how many people are getting their wheels underneath them, getting rid of addictions. We don't really have those numbers. So it's hard to say it isn't working, but
Then
but you can't say that it is, I guess.
yeah, you can't say it is, but then there's a flaw in the system then. If we're spending, I don't know how many millions of dollars a year on social programs, and we say, well, we don't know how many we helped.
Somebody will know. There's got to be those stats somewhere.
The stats stop. So the places in Kitchener, the safe sites.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Safe injection type sites.
yeah, whenever someone goes in there, they get handed a piece of paper that gives them a consultation. And then when they ask them, if you talk to Gibbons at the county.
Yeah.
He's the one, like he stays in touch with all the homeless people in Owen Sound, and he knows them all. He goes to see them. And this is from him. So he said, they all get this piece of paper. And then he asked the question, okay, how many actually go to the consultation? Well, we don't have those statistics. And he says, the reason we don't have those statistics is because it's backfired. It doesn't work. And they don't want you to have those statistics. So they get a piece of paper, but no goes.
So the other way around is they should be going to treatment, getting a piece of paper to bring back to get their paraphernalia.
Right.
Instead of getting a paraphernalia and getting a ticket to go to.
So the whole safe injection thing, it's just been and if people like me get upset and talk the way I'm talking, then I have no empathy. I don't care and blah, blah, blah. And that's what happens. Like all the agencies are people with hearts this big. But the way to fix it is with hard ass ideas. Stop enabling people.
Even with the grants that Craig gets, he has to be accountable. He has to say, okay, I spent X number of dollars on this and this is what happened. Here it seems to me, because I don't have any hard evidence, we're throwing money into a hole and it's disappearing. We're not getting any reports back that hole is starting to fill up because there's too much.
I think, if I can offer some comment, I think there's a couple of different things you have to look at, and that is that there are two distinctly different types of substance abuse users. And we're talking about a small percentage of ones that are causing serious harm and have an erratic behavior and are chaotic substance use. And then there are others who are in a position and use those features to keep them alive to get treatment in other forms. So I think there's two different types of things we have to look at and look at here. And it's been brought up in a number of other areas, and you'll see that there's legislation coming, and I believe it's BC is starting and Alberta's following suit about mandatory treatment programs for different types of criminal offenses involving controlled substance use. That may be something that comes this way. Who knows what they're going to do with us, but it might be something that as a group you consider, or I'm not sure where that's going. The other thing is when you're talking about social service agencies, there's been a lot of research done by a group called Help Seekers and it started out in Alberta, where they were saying, you know, and police are very supportive of it because they're saying, you know, it's billions and billions of dollars to spend on all the social agencies combined, and everybody complains about the few hundred million or the close to $1 billion that you spend on policing. Yet we're left to pick up pieces everywhere. And is the money being well spent, and is it being done properly? Because you know they found like there's 3 different, as an example, there was 3 different agencies that helped victims of intimate partner violence. All 3 are doing the exact same work. We all under one umbrella, and it's wasting money giving 3 different agencies this duplication. So it's something that has to be looked at. I had a meeting with them, an introductory meeting with them when I first arrived here back in 2019 or 20, and it's very interesting, but it doesn't suit my purposes to meet with them and to look at it for my small own sound center. This is a much larger county type of situation, and maybe it's something the county has to look at because the housing situation's not getting any better. The food recovery system's not getting any better. The leasing systems aren't getting, everyone is getting more and more work, more and more demands for our services, and maybe it's time that something well, county level and those people like options to see whether or not the money is being spent properly spent.
So agree with everything that's been said, but we have a local concern. We have a local issue. We have many people with parts that they can add to a solution or an option. Basically, we have community trauma because people who observe what's happening downtown or people who see people die on the streets are traumatized. We don't have treatments available to them. So our community is now being victimized by what they are observing downtown. So it is critical that we look at the community as a whole, not just one compartment, but as a whole, and that includes our businesses. More and more businesses are choosing to leave, and that's a choice. If they have the choice, it doesn't help any of us if our businesses are leaving downtown, and they're very clear about why they're leaving. So if we have the concept of in the commons, that is a community as a whole, there are all sorts of approaches. However, maybe it is time to consider a local approach of a time-limited task force that brings together everyone who has a piece of a solution around a specific issue, which is revitalizing our downtown to be able to encourage businesses to say, people to feel comfortable / safe downtown, and to be able to work on this. We have service agencies, we have the actual members of the community, we have the city representatives, we have the police, who could, for a time limited, say, okay, here are the concerns, where everyone sits around a table. Community safety and well-being, yes, there are tables, but they're not for Owen Sound downtown necessarily, and they don't.
Did we not ask them for that?
And we're still waiting to hear more, and the problems are increasing. Now, sometimes being able to look at solutions locally, but not forever, because it has to be targeted, time limited, and outcome focused. We've got to have a deliverable. Even if your deliverable is that we don't lose one more business downtown in the next year because of this issue, isn't achievable, that would be a goal. But we've tried everything else. And everyone has an opinion about the right answer. I don't have an opinion about one answer. I think there's many answers to this. And how can we work together with everyone's input to say, what is achievable? How are we going to measure whether we achieve it on the resources we currently have? Because nobody's got money to add. But you have the ability to change the lens or the focus, because this is steadily changing as we speak. That's my concern, is we're losing businesses, our downtown. And obviously what's in place is not quite, it's not enough for us, but we don't have the money to have more yet. And I know we have different people looking at it and we have more issues.
Just with
There,
respect
what
to
do you think?
the task force. I think that has been the solution for a number of years.
Long enough.
Hasn't
And,
worked.
and it ain't working.
And is this the community safety and well-being?
Yeah, there's been nothing come out of it. Like, we look at all the different community programs that we have. There's no reporting out of it. Nothing's working. If you want to do a task force, that's fine, but I think the chief and city bylaw needs to get together and move down the street and clean it up.
That's what I mean. I don't mean the larger one that's in place because we've still got issues, but something more targeted here with our local resources. I agree.
I think we have to move it. Yeah, you've got a comment.
Good. My comment is, I think there's such an ideal opportunity in the timing and the fact that everybody has in their mind buy Canadian. So kind of get marketing with the individuals who are downtown before we do lose any more, because put a positive spin on it. It's really easy to say, well, it's because of this or that. It's just tough, really, really tough on retail right now. It's called AMAZON. And I think that's a reality. Amazon is there alive and well. So, but if the whole task force is a mindset of marketing, let's get Canadian going and let's get local. Because if, like, I try now, myself, humble as I am, to buy at my local little store. I try to buy non-chain to try to keep them in business. So if we kind of get that mindset around its marketing, right from the city core, we've got a great town, a beautiful location, so many positive things. So let's try to put a little more of the positive on it. We got a great police force. They're trying with limited number of bodies. Oh my gosh. But I agree with you, Carol. The target being maybe not as much a task force as a targeted week. Let's make the month of whatever, July, being by Owen Sound. Targeted. That's my comment.
Okay, thanks, Bev. I just have one comment to that. Marketing programs are great, but we don't have anything to sell them. We've got streets downtown that are impassable sometimes.
Yeah.
We have job keepers that have locked their doors because they have to control who's coming in and out. We have parents that do not want to take the kids downtown and expose them to the drug paraphernalia that's going on down there. I don't think marketing plan is going to work right now. I think we don't have anything to market. So first of all, we have to take a step back and say, how do we make this more appealing to come downtown? Then we'll start with a marketing program. And I think the River District will be able to do that once they find out that they've got a place to market.
Yep. Great.
I don't think we listen to the right people sometimes. I don't know if I've told the board, when Andrea Donaldson came last summer, she grew up on the streets of Owen Sound. She's an addict.
Mhm.
She's been sober 9 years now. She came back for the very first time because she had to go out east to get away from it. That's how she got sober. And she came and spoke at the Harmony Center last summer. So I went to it and she was unbelievable. And she sat on the stage, not a great speaker, but she's her life story, right? And she talked about Safe and Sound and how it doesn't work, how they're doing drugs in Safe and Sound. And all you're doing is enabling, and you can't enable addicts. And that was her message. But so there's someone that's lived through it, sobered up, she's off everything and cleaned herself up, and she gives you the answer, but nothing comes of it.
And it's not tainted by some funding that's going to reverse her salary.
And it's amazing, like there's people there that are addicts that were asking questions of, how do I get out of this? And I've been trying this, I've been trying that. It was like real. It was so real. And that's the right message that she's giving out. But the agencies will shut you down because, we can't do that. Like,
So where do we go? where do we go from this? We know,
That was
Yeah.
gonna be my next question.
where do we go? We know that the community safety and well-being is not quite addressing.
I think we want to deal with Dunwin Sound.
Exactly, a local group or a local initiative, because we know what's happening, we see it, we all see it. So where do we go from here? How do we draw the people together, who can work towards solution?
Well, I think there's two that have the
Police and,
power right now.
police and bylaw.
You said it. And I think that bylaw needs to take a direction, and I don't know who talks to them about it, but they need to take more of a compliance focus, move along approach, enforce what you've got, as opposed to saying, there's nothing we can do about it.
Bold action, that's what you need.
At least more than what we've seen in the past. And I think the chief has always started that
Hmm.
car heading down the street. Go ahead.
We've made a commitment, moving forward, going to speak with the DIA about the direction that we've gone. I spoke at the small communities conference about the direction that we're moving, trying to make a change. I think we need others to jump on board along with us, and that includes
Mhm.
bylaw, but bylaw can't be compliance based, it needs to be enforcement based. They need to write tickets, they need to enforce the bylaws. I don't know how often they actually do that. We don't see numbers coming out of bylaw, but the direction that I always receive is that we're compliance based, we're not enforcement based. Sooner or later, and when it comes to a crisis, they have to move towards enforcement.
We do need to have a more supportive legal framework because that's what's been lost over the years. So even when you're talking about bylaws, you're talking about provincial offense notice. Years ago, for the chief, Jeff and I, there was such a thing as committal warrant. So if you don't pay your bylaw ticket or your traffic ticket, eventually it was a warrant that came out that said you owe $200 or 30 days in jail. That's gone. There's no process by which the Provincial Offense Act notice or the bylaw ticket, you charge people in certain circumstances who may be unhoused. The current default is that it goes against your driver's license. So when you go to get your driver's license renewed, there's cost there. These are, there's not a trigger. You're talking about people who don't drive cars and that sort of thing. And I can also tell you there are some social agencies in town who will pay those fines because they consider lack of a driver's license to be a barrier for employment. So fines that we're giving out either accumulate for a long period of time. They may not be effective for certain people that are in the
So you lose your clout.
high risk. Our trick now is to try and get some reclaim back of the drug possession enforcement, but we're now jumping through a bunch of hoops just to try to convince the Public Prosecution Service of Canada to let some of these things go through. It always seems like we're swimming upstream to try and get something that's a usable tool for our officers to be able to have some effect. So as the chief said, I'll be at DIA trying to get people to write support letters that we can now send off to PPSC saying, please reconsider when we lay charges to actually see them through. That's just the environment that we're in right now.
So if police and bylaw were to meet together, who else needs to be at that table to have a conversation? I mean, business owners have a voice as well. What do they want? What do they need?
Yes.
You might find that out at the meeting coming up.
Like,
So the one with the DIA, is it set?
No, it's the community forum tonight.
No, you said you're going to be meeting with the DIA.
I don't have one, sorry. If I said that, I was.
I am, I think.
Sorry, Jeff, Dave's meeting.
Maybe.
Is that a regular meeting or is that a specific?
No, it's just a regular meeting. I just asked for some extra time to be able to explain our process, but from our meeting with the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. So when we put in place our basically directive to the officers saying we need to go out and at least try to increase our enforcement under certain circumstances, we also met with PSC, and Chief had drafted up a community impact statement which listed the number of deaths we've seen, impacts to our businesses, all that sort of things. And The local PPSC response was, doesn't carry a lot of weight, you need to have it follow the businesses that are being affected. So my purpose of going to EIA is to say, if you could, please provide this for us, so we can put a big binder together going, here's 20 businesses who will have the impact, and hopefully send that along to the clearinghouse in Toronto that's looking at all these charges to have them go, maybe all sounds different, maybe we need to let some of these things go through. So
2024, we had extra money to hire specials, I believe. Not auxiliary specials to go downtown. The new act said they couldn't do that. There was some discussion at that. Meeting.
Mhm.
There was some discussion on alternatives, I think with the city manager, and you were probably involved. And I don't know where that's gone. I'm reluctant to go too much further in an open meeting.
Yeah, and yes, nothing came of that, but that would probably be option for some grant funding to try and deal with some of that. So in an upcoming release.
Okay, with regard to bylaw enforcement, looking to go from to proactive enforcement instead of complaint-based, compliance-based is coming to service review September 11th. So it's in process. It's working.
September 11th. That's a whole summer. You want more and more business.
It's not coming any faster, John. You can do whatever you want till then, but as far as bylaws coming, it is coming to service review September 11th.
So what is bylaws saying coming on September 11th, whether they're going to enforce nuisance bylaw?
The report will come to service review at City Hall with regard to how we're enforcing bylaws. So going from complaint-based, compliance-based to proactive. It's not coming any sooner.
Just seems like a long time for a problem that's been there for time.
Are there any interim strategies before that report? So obviously meeting and discussing the police, the change and not the change. It's not really a change, an enforcement action that you are doing. That's so information education is a short-term strategy. And collecting information from the business owners about what they would like can inform. They're correct.
Yeah, I mean. The nature of policing, I'm gonna say it now, is that we actually do things, we accomplish things, and we get results. And that's what we will continue to do.
Yeah.
And we will obviously be working alone, and if there's no change in enforcement from the bylaw side, then we'll continue to enforce the bylaws the way we normally would. We'll continue to enforce criminal code, the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act, and it's much like many facets of the community, it's left for the police to pick up the bag, and it wasn't necessarily a policing problem, and we'll continue to do that. So that's how we'll continue to work and move this forward. If there's an opportunity for some grant funding to work in the future, and if we're fortunate enough to receive some funding, then that's an option. But I'll remind everybody that, as always, the police are left to pick up the bag, and yet they can also complain about the budget going up every year. So that's my way.
Sorry, just a question to you, just to confirm, so the bylaw is not going to do any charges. They're not going to be compliance based and not enforcement based until after the meeting in September.
They will continue to operate the way they're operating.
Okay.
You may know, I don't know, but in any places where this, a similar impact is happening on downtown businesses, so large cities, smaller cities, is there a threshold level where there is a percentage of loss of businesses that triggers a crisis response? Have they ever established at what point, how many businesses have to be gone for downtown for there to be an acknowledgement that this has reached a threshold of, not crisis maybe, but urgency. Has there ever been any of those, that bit of information?
There's nothing scientific, but I think when you look at a population of a city compared to the businesses, and if one of them is going down faster, the other one's staying stagnant, that's probably moving into a crisis situation.
There's no magic word now.
No.
But Sudbury is devastated. London is devastated.
Yeah,
Um,
but there's no threshold.
byward market of Ottawa is close to devastated. Once the bay pulls out of there, it'll be worse.
I wonder if someone should look into that September 11th date. I know off the top of your head, it's like gonna be set in stone, but I just worry about with winter coming on, if you're gonna make decisions at that time of the year, that could involve, you know, what?
As you know, Ryan, is on top of everything else that clerks are doing, they've got to come up with a whole new bylaw. Research it.
Yeah,
and have
but
it ready.
And even if we do move the meeting ahead of time, there's no guarantee that even the September meeting will have a positive outcome.
yeah,
I think there is.
Okay, we talked around this table quite a bit. I'm wondering, do we want to put forth an action item? And if we do, what is that action item to be? Do we support, motion to continue to support what the police chief is doing, moving forward with some of the additional enforcement activities? Do we ask him to speak to bylaw? Just provide support to them if they think they need support? Or suggestions?
My concern is, and I think I'm hearing between the lines, the frustrations of the policing addressing an issue that's having a huge impact and growing in our community. I do see that for sure, bylaw has a role. I also see, when you say DIA, you mean River District. Sorry, I just have I missed a group? I see even having conversations together with those people who are most impacted by anything might be a worthwhile beginning to encourage a specific targeted conversation around sustainability of our downtown in relation to our current social environment. I mean, having people at a table. I mean, at least we're not waiting for people, we're having an exchange of ideas, people, and who knows what can come of them. I don't know.
So. This is the discussion that we're having here, is that the police are doing their piece of it. Is the downtown revitalization? It's a policing issue, but are we the lead on this? And is this board actually? Or does it fall elsewhere? We'll have the meeting, PIA or River District. We'll have those discussions. But really, we are one piece of that puzzle, and we're moving things forward, and we're doing what we have to. Got their socks to do their as well.
Who should be the lead on this then?
Tim was waiting for you to come back with a model, social navigator model instead of us hiring externally.
Yeah, and the social navigator model is something that we would look at for grant funding, but there's no money to. Right, everybody that the budget was presented and asked to be cut again. this year, so there wasn't money to fund the social navigator right now.
Let's still come up with the concept and
Gonna be a grant funded position, gonna move forward, please and say.
we can be ready if they do get grants, or we can find other.
Well, we're moving forward with that on the grant side of things, but I'm just saying that
Don't wait.
So what would be the lead on this? We hear policing is doing their role. Who should lead?
Don as chair can lead this. You can set up a committee. You set up a task force.
Sorry.
Another committee and task force just seems to be,
It's just more, it's
So
just,
it's another committee on top of a committee that is going to.
is doing nothing now.
Biggest decision is when are we meeting next time?
I didn't want to say that.
council needs to up your game.
Yeah, when you said who should lead it, who's it going to impact the most?
Downtown. And the community, but I don't know, businesses first, right? That's what
Mhm.
came up. I'd look to the mayor for his wisdom.
Police board asked the city council to set up another meeting with DIA and Chamber of Commerce to invite all the businesses to have a discussion on the business conditions in downtown Owen Sound. Invite the Owen Sound Police Services.
I'll second that.
Did you get that, Kelly?
Yeah.
Somebody did anyway.
And talk to the circle. To be chaired by the chair of the police board.
Sorry, twice.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, you were going to
What
say?
did President Kennedy say in his inauguration?
That's not
My
what,
fellow Americans.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your city. I was joking about the last part, just
Yes,
which the chair,
about
what?
adding him, just super clear.
that'll be formed at the first meeting and I won't be there.
Exactly. You're there.
Very
Right.
briefly, if I can tell you quickly, another thing we're doing, there's a few people downtown who are very consistently being charged criminally, particularly mischiefs, because and it's going on for years. And we are processing them for bail. They are constantly being released the next day with multiple charges. And just confirms that they'll be violating the next day and be getting charged again. So I've been approaching this Crown's office to try and get some bail reviews done, because ultimately the justice of the peace is not making a sound decision in terms of doing this. The net result is there's a lot of work for the Crown's office to do that, and it's weeks later where ultimately what comes out is a document that said JP made a mistake, but it doesn't fix our problem for the person is released again. So we have the same person constant breaking windows, tearing eavesdrops off, dumping flowers into the river. Going on for several years now. We keep going, he's charged again, he's out again. And that rotating door is problematic for us. Crown's office here is very short staffed, so we had to assign our core officer to do a bunch of the prep work, put that material together to take to the Crown and go, here, can you please advance this, only to get a letter that, or a document that's ultimately going to say, hey, JP, you made a mistake. So it's,
Yeah,
we're trying everything that we have. With the short staff, it's one of these corner of the desk things too, but
yeah.
it's also frustrating where call volumes are going up and it's because the same people.
Yeah, staffing is going down.
Which is then creating more work, put the package together to.
Yeah.
At some point, it all comes down to the direction of legislation and what the ultimate goal is. The province or the federal level.
I want to amend my motion to include an invitation to the provincial and federal prosecutors locally, as well as our MPP.
Okay. All right, I think we've beat that one up enough. Hmm? Oh, all in favor? Yeah, thank you. Get back to the agenda. Oh, yes, okay. So I've got a couple of other things. Number one is, I'd like to acknowledge Mayor Body received the Municipal Government Stewardship Award for the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council. It was last Tuesday. The award recognizes the excellence of an elected official who has emerged as a leader in promoting regional isotope production, workforce and talent, and partnerships and strength, and regional supply chain. Congrats, Ian.
Thanks. I was in a room with some fireball, F-bomb, some really amazing brains. So the awards, the first two awards went to our, not supposed to use the chiefs of the Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation, who are both brilliant guys. The next one was our Minister of Energy, Stephen Lecce, who's a brilliant guy. The next one was, retiring member of parliament. And then after me were all these doctors and scientists that are doing amazing stuff with isotopes, with curing cancer and with PET scans. And it's just looking around the room going, WTF am I doing here? This really getting an award. Like it was phenomenal. So it's nice to be recognized for the effort it was putting in with the Saugeen, with the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, which does include the Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation. So it's nice to get the trophy with my name on it for all the effort that's put in by a whole bunch of people. Thanks.
Well, congrats. And one last item that I have, as you probably know, this will be Jeff's last meeting. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your service over the years. And what's it been, some 30 plus years now?
Just over 30, yes.
Just over 30 then. All right, and all of support that you provided to this and service provided to the community and people in the station. I know there'll be a lot of people that will miss you. I know there's probably a lot of people that you won't miss, but that's another story. For another day. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what they'll do when they actually do retire. But I'm sure that Jeff, I think he has some home renovations to do. He has a honeydew list.
Very big.
More importantly, he's got a rod and reel with his name on it that he'll be using.
Absolutely.
That will be something
I
good.
just want to say that it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the city of Owen Sound through the police service, and very thankful and grateful that they put their faith in me and took a chance on me 30 years ago. And I vowed at that time to do everything I could. I was told when I walked in the door and was sworn in that they said you'll be wearing double blue within 2 years. So don't get used to this uniform. And I'm very happy to say we're still here and we will be here in the future. I'm confident in that. Thank you.
Thank you. So everything else is completed on the agenda. I'm going to terminate the public meeting at 11:50.
Anybody around that's more to you than yours still?